It happened again. A user on the forums for the popular game War Thunder just posted the complete technical manual for the Apache helicopter gunship, marking what could be the 30th such restricted document to be leaked to the public on these forums. With yet another restricted document now leaked onto these online repositories, it's sure starting to seem like this game is a legitimate threat to the national security of more than one nation. Or is it? Because I went through every single leaked document on the War Thunder forums trying to find any classified information that wasn't already available to the public, and what I found might surprise you. Let's talk about the War Thunder leaks and how serious they really are. I'm Alex Hollings, and this is Air Power.
Fox 1.
Last week, a user on the War Thunder gaming forum named Barty698PL posted a complete technical manual for the AH-64D Apache Longbow. Now, this is one of the more modern iterations of the long-serving helicopter gunship, though it entered service all the way back in 1997. Today, the Longbow still flies for the United States, the UK, Japan, and several other nations. And this breach of security sure seems like a pretty big deal. And it isn't the first one. This is maybe the 11th or as many as the 30th time such a document has found its way into the forums associated with the game War Thunder. And this problem is not limited to the United States and its allies. Restricted documents about military systems from Russia and China have also found their way onto these forums. But the truth is, in this era of internet trends collecting steam as they roll down the hill of online hyperbole, it can be tough to assess just how grievous these security breaches actually are, let alone why these leaks keep happening. But after poring over every individual document allegedly leaked on these forums, the truth is, my findings suggest the ever-growing tale of the War Thunder leaks is less a story about secrets being revealed by gamers and more a story about how media outlets and social media users really like the idea of these secrets being revealed by gamers. But I can't be the only old man around here who's never played War Thunder, so let's take a step back and add some context. War Thunder touts itself as the most comprehensive, free-to-play, cross-platform MMO military game available on various computer operating systems and console platforms. That modern acronym, MMO, stands for Massively Multiplayer Online, which denotes the ability to play in a single server or single game shared with a large number of other real, actual players. Now, to be honest, this alone is the reason I've never tried my hand at War Thunder, despite my affinity for military technology. I might be married to an avid gamer, and I even have family ties to the growing world of esports, but I use games to escape the anxiety of human interaction, and you just can't do that in a digital world full of real humans. War Thunder advertises the player's ability to control a wide variety of very real military platforms, ranging from aircraft to armored vehicles to warships and more. And it's that ability to simulate combined arms combat, along with its dedication to realism, that has inspired a loyal fan base ever since its initial beta release all the way back in 2012. Earlier this year, they even released a mobile version of the game to play on your smartphone. Now, I may be too lame for these MMOs, but I know someone who isn't. You might even know him too, as Habitual Linecrosser. Sergeant First Class Long isn't just a popular content creator on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. He's also a Patriot operator maintainer, and maybe most importantly for this story, an avid gamer with a great deal of technical expertise. He was clear with me that War Thunder's a great game for, quote, a combination of realism for some players and arcade play for others. And maybe it's that very combination of things that's helped War Thunder cultivate such a massive player community. According to the stats on ActivePlayer.io, War Thunder sees between 500 and 700,000 players a day. And the game's online presence extends far beyond the confines of the game itself, with countless digital communities springing up around the internet on places like Steam, Reddit, and of course, War Thunder's official forum. At the time I wrote this script, the official War Thunder forum had a stated 31,885 users, and the War Thunder subreddit has more than 391,000. And despite recording this at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, Steam currently shows 82,667 users in the game right now on their platform, and 3,000 of them participating in the game's group chat. I would say, don't you guys have work or school or something to get to, but the truth is I'm just jealous. It's safe to say that while the MMO aspect of this game may scare off some old-timers like me, War Thunder has a massive following that includes not just military technology enthusiasts, but a fair number of service members and veterans with real experience operating these platforms. But while that devotion to realism is a big part of War Thunder's international allure, it's also the reason why this game prompts some pretty heated debates between users. Based on my research, there have been between 11 and 30 leaks of restricted documents in War Thunder forums so far, depending on how you count them, with the earliest dating back to July of 2021 and the most recent happening just a few days ago. This problem has become so prominent and commonplace that the War Thunder Wikipedia page now has an entire section devoted to it. And at a fundamental level, I understand how this happens. If you're familiar with my work at all, then you almost certainly know how any online discussion about military technology is quickly flooded by both real and manufactured claims about the capabilities and performance of various systems fielded by various nations. These days, you can't even mention the word Kinzel on YouTube without being inundated by comments from users with blank accounts and usernames like Richard164317 decrying any statement that departs from official Russian claims as Western propaganda, and anyone who doesn't take those Russian claims at face value becomes a CIA shill. Now, to be clear, Russia's digital hordes are certainly not alone in the battle space of online discourse, but because I know there's sure to be a whole bunch of them with us right now, it only felt right to give them a shout out. Now, most warfare-centric video games make few illusions about a lack of realism, and that's not always a bad thing. Thanks to my silly VR headset and Ace Combat 7, I may have more hours logged in the cockpit of the F-22 than some real pilots. But my F-22 in Ace Combat 7 flies into the fight with more than 100 Sidewinders on board, and that's obviously not very realistic, even if it does make the game a ton of fun to play. But because War Thunder emphasizes realism, it creates an environment wherein debate about a system's performance is not relegated to just complaining about code. Because the platforms and systems in-game are meant to depict their real-life counterparts, debates about their in-game performance often comes down to providing real-world sources to back up your claims. And as Habitual Linecrosser explained to me in our conversation, that realism doesn't just add fun to the game. He says that players who study real military systems often excel during gameplay. I'll quote him. The realism and simulation modes take War Thunder to the next level. The level of penetration, weapons range, angle of target, location of ammo storage, all of these things are taken into account. But because really knowing your military systems can help you be a better player, it makes it a real sore spot when the game departs from reality. And in the case of very few players, that sore spot can even become an obsession. Debates about system capabilities are commonplace in the War Thunder forums, and sometimes these debates lead players to post restricted documents as proof that they're right. But not all of the leaks that I could confirm came as a result of digital mudslinging. Some of these leaks came from players who really wanted to see their favorite platforms hurried into the game, and they hoped that by leaking very real technical data to the programmers, they could get these platforms into the game that much sooner. Now, it is worth noting that Gaijin, the company that makes War Thunder, is headquartered in Budapest, Hungary these days, but it was actually founded in Moscow back in 2002. In 2012, the firm expanded into Germany and has since opened additional offices in Latvia, Cyprus, Armenia, and the UAE, among others. And more than one gamer has accused War Thunder of embellishing the capabilities of Russian hardware to give them an edge, but those claims are pretty hotly disputed by others within the community. The company was accused of providing indirect financial support to Russian-backed separatists in eastern Ukraine back in January of 2021 after logos for War Thunder and another game, Crossout, were seen in a video tied to these groups. For their part, Gaijin released a statement saying that they had nothing at all to do with that video and they requested that it be taken down, which it was. Earlier this year, Gaijin was again under fire for its game Atomic Heart, which many accused of advancing Russian propaganda. Now, Gaijin Entertainment has repeatedly denied any affiliation with Russia whatsoever, saying that they're a Hungarian enterprise based in Europe. But in the complex world of business bureaucracy, I thought it was important to tell you guys this for context. Okay, now that we know all about what this game is and why these restricted documents are finding their way into their forums, let's run through the list of these leaks and talk about how serious each one could be. The first restricted document to find its way into the War Thunder forums happened on July 16th of 2021, and the document was the armor layout for the UHT-665 Eurocopter Tiger. Now, this helicopter has been in service for multiple nations for over 2 decades now, and it's pretty unlikely that adversary nations didn't have access to this armor arrangement and layout document, seeing as I found it on other websites dating back to at least 2010. Up next, we have the Challenger 2 main battle tank, which also happened in July of 2021. A player who self-identified as a Challenger 2 tank commander in the UK military posted excerpts from the tank's Army Equipment Support Publication, or AESP, to prove that the game developer didn't model the Challenger 2 properly in the game. Now, that AESP is, for lack of a better term, the user manual for the tank's operators and maintainers, and on the documents posted, the words UK restricted had been crossed out with an unclassified stamp over them. But according to a moderator on the forum, they received written confirmation that the images posted were still classified at the time. As for the seriousness of this leak, these manuals are restricted, but they've also been very widely disseminated to everyone who operates, crews, or maintains these tanks, both inside and beyond the UK's borders for more than a quarter century now, and as a result, it is exceedingly unlikely that adversary nations gained any actual intelligence off of this leak. The next leak came in October of 2021, and this time it was France's Leclerc main battle tank. During a debate about the turret rotation speed of the Leclerc main battle tank, one user, who claimed to be a tank crewman in the French army, resorted to posting portions of the tank gunner's manual, along with some details about the speed in which his Leclerc Series 2 turret could rotate. Now, once again, while these manuals are restricted, they are not classified, and they're widely distributed among tank crews and really anyone else with any reason to have one. In fact, with both the Challenger 2 and the Leclerc, I was able to find either these manuals in their entirety or significant portions of them hosted elsewhere online, meaning there was very likely no intelligence value out of this leak. The next leak came on June 5th of 2022, and this was the first time China surfaced on this list, when a debate about the penetrating capabilities of the Chinese DTC-10-125 tungsten sabot round, a tank-killing round leveraged by a variety of China's tanks, prompted one user to post an image of the round itself resting atop what appears to be a previously unreleased technical diagram of the weapon. Now, in this instance, I could not find any example of this diagram being posted online prior to this leak, but I have seen translated Chinese media reports claiming that it had been. You can take that for what you will, but I can say that after looking at a translation of the information on this diagram, I was able to confirm that most of it is found elsewhere in things like foreign sales brochures and similar documentation. And it's possible that all of these details have been released before, I'm just not as good at navigating the Chinese internet. Up next, we'll move on to January 18th of 2023 and the largest single leak of restricted documents so far, when a whole slew of Operational Flight Program, or OFP software manuals for various F-15E Strike Eagle systems were all uploaded at once by an overzealous user. The list included manuals for the AN/APG-70 radar, as well as more specific manuals for the radar's operations in air-to-air and air-to-ground modes, among other things. As for the severity of these leaks, well, they were all dated between 1998 and 2000, and they were all from Suite 3 of the Operational Flight Program. Last year, the F-15E Strike Eagle moved on to Operational Flight Program Suite 9.1, which tells you that there have been a number of significant changes and updates since then. But that doesn't mean that there are absolutely no commonalities between those dated systems and their more modern iterations today. Now, the documents themselves have long since been declassified, but their distribution is still considered restricted. Nonetheless, because of the age, and again, the widespread dissemination of these documents, it's pretty unlikely that they produced any real revelations for an adversary nation. And right around that same day, another leak related to an American fighter, this time the F-16A Fighting Falcon, also found its way onto the War Thunder forums. This time, a user took to the forums to highlight something about how the F-16A leveraged America's long-serving radar-guided AIM-120 Advanced Medium Range Air-to-Air Missile, or the AMRAAM as you likely know it, and he posted documents to support his position. In particular, he highlighted how in the F-16A you would equip the AIM-120 and use its track-while scan capabilities not on a multifunction display like you would in a modern F-16, but instead on the score's control panel. Now, those of you who speak airplane nerd will likely already see why this isn't much of a big deal. The F-16A was the earliest iteration of this fighter, which began production more than 45 years ago. And today's F-16s don't even have the same sort of score's control panel to worry about anymore. The documents themselves have long been declassified, but as the moderator argued, they still would be considered export restricted by America's International Traffic in Arms Regulations Export Manual, more commonly known as the ITAR, and that's probably true, but at the end of the day, the F-16 has been operated by at least 25 different countries, and its documentation and flight manuals are so widely distributed that I've found some of them at flea markets before. So it's really unlikely that any real intelligence could be gleaned from this leak. Up next, we've got China's second entry on this list, this time regarding the Shenyang J-8B. This leak came on January 31st of 2023. Now, despite entering service in 1980, China's J-8 is really, to some extent, just an enlarged and improved version of their J-7, which itself was just a licensed copy of the Soviet MiG-21. Now, the J-8B did see significant reworking, incorporating more modern design elements borrowed from aircraft like the MiG-23 and the F-4 Phantom to keep it competitive. Now, this leak happened because a user was frustrated that in-game, the J-8B's ballistic computer and heads-up display was not showing a constantly computed impact point, or CCIP. In other words, the heads-up display wasn't showing where ordnance would impact when fired. And to bolster his argument, he posted a file called Printout for the Modification of the J-82 Flight Operations, composed by Institute 601, Ministry of Astronautics Industry. Now, this aircraft was never exported, and to be honest, documentation online is very limited, but because the J-8Bs that are still in active service had their radar and fire control systems completely replaced in the year 2000, actual intelligence value from this leak would be extremely limited if it existed at all. After that, we head back to Europe for a leak regarding the Eurofighter Typhoon DA-7 that happened on August 30th of this year. Unlike the other leaks, this one didn't happen as a result of a user's gripe or complaint, but rather because they were trying to expedite getting the Eurofighter Typhoon added to the game. And to do that, they decided to post the entire 730-page manual for a specific Typhoon prototype, known as Developmental Aircraft 7, or DA-7, which was built for testing by the Italian Armed Forces. Now, once again, nothing in this document was ever considered classified, though portions of it were considered NATO export restricted. And once again, I was able to find this document published elsewhere online, a few from many years prior to this alleged War Thunder leak, telling me that not only is that probably where this user got it in the first place, but also that there was likely absolutely no intelligence value to this leak. And now we move on to one of the sexier sounding ones, because on September 11th of 2023, one user posted a series of screenshots taken from the F-117's flight manual, showing engine specifications, sensor locations, and more. Now, in previous instances, moderators would just take down the documents, but this time they nuked the whole thread, and that led a lot of people to think it must be serious. But once again, nothing classified was actually posted. And while the material that was is generally considered to be restricted, it is very available to the public. A simple Google search for the F-117's flight manual produces a number of very interesting results that share more information than could be gleaned from these War Thunder leaks. While we're on the topic of stealth aircraft, you should also know that some people say that documents about the Su-57's radar cross-section were also leaked in the War Thunder forums, but of course you probably can already guess that those documents were actually Sukhoi's patent paperwork that have been making the rounds on the internet for years now. Another sometimes alleged leak involved the MiG-29, though once again, if you just Google MiG-29 flight manual, you can find it hosted online in a bunch of different places. And that brings us to just last week when the technical manual for the AH-64D Apache Longbow was leaked, but I know you guys can already guess what I'm gonna say. This document is considered unclassified, not declassified, but unclassified, as in never classified in the first place. And while, again, this documentation is considered restricted, it isn't tough to come by. So if none of these War Thunder leaks were really leaks at all, what's the deal with this story? Well, as is so often the case when stories about military technology reach mainstream media, that media attention isn't predicated on the actual value of the story, but rather in the public's general interest in it. After all, the War Thunder leaks story provides a seemingly endless source of very memeable hot takes that drive comments and shares and social media interaction. Despite my real efforts to find a story somewhere in this story, I didn't find a single piece of classified information that had ever been leaked on the War Thunder forums. And in fact, with just a few exceptions, I was able to not only find all of these documents hosted elsewhere online, often for many years, but in many instances, I was able to find the larger source documents that these excerpts were taken from, hosted right there on the internet for the whole world to see. Now, none of that should be seen as an endorsement for these dummies posting restricted documents in the War Thunder forums. It of course is not, but the truth is, national governments devote massive resources to gaining access to legitimately classified documents and designs. They scour digital spaces for actionable intelligence, and they go to great lengths to manipulate insiders into revealing the latest breakthroughs in defense technology. For these War Thunder leaks to have any real intelligence value, it would suggest that the nations using them have access to the War Thunder forums, but somehow didn't have access to the rest of the internet where the majority of these documents were already readily available. At the end of the day, this whole War Thunder leaks story is just an exploration into how pop culture shapes media coverage, with seemingly countless media outlets bending over backward to infer the severity of these leaks, but very few making much of an effort to determine their actual severity at all. So the next time you see headlines blazing across the internet about yet another round of War Thunder leaks, you should know that you're looking at an exercise in the age-old media adage, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. But just in case anybody out there watching also happens to be the sort of person who would post a restricted document in a War Thunder forum just to win an internet debate with a stranger, let me be the one to tell you, don't do it, man. You know better. And with that ends yet another edition of Air Power from Sandboxx News. I'm Alex Hollings. Make sure to swing by sandboxnews.com today and every day for all the latest in news, entertainment, and motivation from all around the force. If you got anything out of today's video, make sure to click like and subscribe down below and leave me a comment so I know what I should cover next. And of course, don't forget to tap on that bell icon so you never miss a drop from Sandboxx News.